Good evening, everyone. Nice to see the few of you that have your cameras on. I'd like to invite everyone to at least show your face. And if you don't mind, before we sit tonight, let's say hello, unmute, feel free, and feel free to say where you're calling in from.
Excuse me. 21st
I'm
Street.
Joe. I'm from Garberville, California, and Northern California, up in the Redwoods.
Welcome.
Christmas lights.
Hi, everybody. Charlie and Elsa here from Berkeley.
Terry from rainy Victoria.
Isaac from Santa Rosa.
Jill in Edmonton, usually Regina.
Wow.
Hey, Jill.
Laura from Maryland.
Paige from San Francisco.
Nora from Oakland.
Big love from Nashville, Jerry.
Wow.
Hey, Jerry.
Ray and Tish in San Rafael.
Wow, Ray, haven't seen you in a long time.
Hi,
How cool.
Howie.
Great to see you.
You too.
Here comes Tomas.
And Tomas too.
All right, Tomas.
Frank and Rhonda, San Francisco.
Great, Frank, Rhonda.
I have Jonathan in Calgary.
Calgary.
Hey,
Wow.
Calgary and Edmonton tonight.
The other Howie from San Francisco.
The Howie from San Francisco.
Madison.
Hey, Madison. I see Noemi.
Hi, Amy from San Francisco.
Hi, Howie. It's Mark from San
Hey,
Francisco.
Mark.
Brenda, calling from the Sunshine Coast, British Columbia.
Oh, Sunshine Coast. Lucky you.
Eddie from Fairfax.
Wow.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Cindy from San Francisco.
Yeah.
Glad to see we have some San Francisco yogis still.
Don and Patty from Tucson.
All right. Don and Patty.
Uh-huh.
Go Warriors. Don is in Tucson. He's a Sun fan, and they're playing the Warriors tonight. So
Oh.
Let's hurry it up, Howie. I'm just kidding.
okay. Thank you for speaking
Mary
out.
from Santa Barbara. You missed me.
Oh, hey Mary. Glad you're here as always.
Hi.
So this is not a time just to say hello. It's actually to practice together. So let's continuously orienting ourselves to whatever it is first, whatever it is that you're experiencing right now. And if you're experiencing anything right now, your mind, your body, you know that you're in present time. You know that, hopefully you know that the past has passed and the future is just a dream, just an idea. And that there really is only this reality that's easily overlooked while we're busy planning and remembering. So this is our time to immerse ourselves together in reality, to let go of our usual preoccupations, or at least notice them, and to, as much as possible, settle back into this unfolding present moment, which we see that when we are aware, there are only unfolding moments. Life is much less complicated because we step out of our stories, our situations, into the immediacy of of life, which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling things in our body, and thinking. But with all of these sense experiences, the 5 physical senses, the 1 mental sense, we notice what is the presently arising experience. And hopefully we bring an attitude of welcoming, of even enjoyment. Enjoy the thoughts when they come. Don't extend them or feed them. Notice how they behave. They arise and vanish. Notice the moods that come. Feel them through the body. Notice that they're changing conditions like weather. Notice the sensations in the body. Enjoy the ever-changing variety of physical sensations. But as a support, as an anchor for our attention, we start with and continue throughout, if you find it helpful, to anchor the attention in the felt experience of the whole body, and specifically the body's experience of its own breathing. Just connecting and sustaining the connection through the duration of the body's feeling of expanding and contracting, or the feeling of the air moving in and out of the nostrils or past the upper lip. Just the whole body gently widening and then contracting with each breath. Just this breath, just this moment. All of this attention that is given to this body and breath. This attention is natural to us. So just sense how this awareness is available to us. Notice how effortlessly the body is known in awareness. How effortlessly the breath is felt in awareness. Awareness is open, receptive. It is impartial. It's open to everything. So we bring that welcoming attitude to our sitting body, our breath, and anything else that becomes predominant. Just this moment, just this breath, or whatever it is that comes. A soft mind that's both alert and precise. Just this moment, just this breath. Notice when the body bathes in awareness, the body settles, the mind steadies. Just this moment. Whatever you're noticing right now, there's nothing to do about it. There's nothing to undo. Awareness has no agenda other than to know what's presently arising. It's not a problem solver. It's just bearing witness to the reality of your life as it's unfolding, just this moment. No matter how many times you realize you've been lost in thought, each one of these moments of realization is a sign that mindfulness has shined through. It's rearisen. You've popped out. So appreciate that moment of reawakening, remembering that there's nothing to do at that moment or undo, just to notice that you're now aware, and just in support of remaining anchored to the living present. We connect again with our bodies, which are present, our breath. Just let ourselves bathe in this present awareness. Bathe in the outer silence and bathe in the inner silence of awareness. This way we rest our weary minds and bodies in this natural peace of being aware. Just this moment, just this breath, or whatever it is that we're noticing. If there's any strain or struggle, just notice this. This is what strain and struggle is like. Notice what happens to it when it's felt. The same with dullness. There's dullness, notice the experience of dullness. See what happens to it. And if necessary, feel free to mindfully refresh yourself and begin your practice again. Just remembering that every moment is a new beginning. You can always begin again. Your mind and your body and your mind. And together, the life of the unfolding present, just this moment. natural mind or awareness is vast, oceanic, completely open to and welcoming whatever arises. In these last minutes of the practice, let your body bathe in that great ocean of mind. Just rest in this natural peace. Rest your weary mind and body in this natural openness. This ocean of awareness is non-judgmental. So it's like love. Rest in this loving awareness. It just accepts things just the way they are. Just this moment. So I assume that all of you just experienced what you were experiencing with no evaluation, no judgment, just things as they are. This is the direction of insight meditation, is that we learn to see things clearly, not always according to our will or wish, but we learn to make everything the manure or fertilizer of our practice. So everything's welcome. I'm sure you all brought that welcoming attitude throughout the sitting. Didn't say it before, but tonight is is the Howie night. I'm Howie, but there's also Howie G, who is otherwise known as Mission Dharma, who is our co-host and our curator of all things Zoom and some other Mission Dharma announcements. And so I think before we go on, I think maybe Howie, it might be your time to make a couple of announcements,
Okay.
and then we'll just proceed with the. I have some stray thoughts, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions and comments later. But for now, Howie G.
Okay, welcome everyone, and it's great to be here, as usual. I want to mention two things. One about Howie's going to be giving a retreat, an online half-day retreat, which is going to be on Saturday, December 11th. That's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time.
No, Pacific Standard, by the way.
Is it? Well, it said PDT here, so forgive me. I guess it's standard, yes. Whatever time it is now, it's the same time then, wherever you are, except it's 9 to 1 on the West Coast. And it's going to be a online retreat. And if you want to find out more about it, there is the information in this week's weekly email. So presumably you all got that because that's how you clicked on it. But I will put some information in the chat in a minute. Also, I am going to talk about Donna. And I may have given the wrong information because I see something in the text that says whoops, but Howie, I think that is correct. Is that not right what I said? Can anyone hear me? Okay, well, I'm just going to continue chatting. I want to talk about Donna. So Donna, I think it's incredibly relevant to talk about Donna now because for those of us who have celebrated Thanksgiving, you know, I mean, gratitude and generosity just can't but go hand in hand. And Dana is the word that we use for generosity. And this place is maintained by everyone's generosity. Howie and the people who sit in his chair volunteer, but it does cost money to keep this Sangha going with these 30 plus, I guess 30 many plus years, and that is something that you can see in the chat also. So I'm stumbling a little bit, but I hope you get the sense of it. So, and I will put as much information as I can in the chat. Thank you all.
Thanks, Howie. Sounded all good to me. I didn't hear anything suspicious, off, all good. And thanks for all of your service, your generosity. And thanks everyone else in advance for your generosity. Just while we're on the subject of gratitude, I came by a Michael J. Fox quote that I just thought was wonderful, just as an epilogue to last Thanksgiving and last week's talk about gratitude, and Mary presenting the gratitude practice that Insight Richmond is doing, and that we're also posting on the Mission Dharma Facebook page, just the practice of gratitude. We won't say more about that again, but you can check all of that out. But Michael J. Fox was sharing how he stayed optimistic while living with just chronic, long-term Parkinson's disease. And he basically said gratitude makes optimism sustainable. He said, for one thing, I'm genuinely a happy guy. I don't have a morbid thought in my head. I don't fear death. at all. But as I came through that darkness, I also had an insight about my father-in-law, who had passed away and always espoused gratitude and acceptance and confidence. I started to notice things I was grateful for and the way other people would respond to difficulty with gratitude. I concluded that gratitude makes optimism sustainable. And if you don't think you have anything to be grateful for, keep looking. Because you don't just receive optimism. You can't wait for things to be great and then be grateful for that. You've got to behave in a way that promotes feeling that way. He also says, some days are more difficult than others. And the disease, but Parkinson's doesn't dictate how he lives his life. The disease is this thing that's attached to my life. It isn't the driver. And because I have resources, I have things others don't, I wouldn't begin to compare my experience to that of someone who doesn't have resources, who gets Parkinson's and has to quit his job and find a new way to live. So I'm really lucky. But anyway, nevertheless, gratitude is a good thing to have, and one of its natural expressions, as Howie said so beautifully, is generosity. So thank you for reminding me of that. So I thought of this as Omicron week. Is that how you pronounce it? Did I get it right? Another reminder, at least it was for me, that having my well-being, my sense of happiness, my sense of peace dependent on conditions being the way that I would like them to be it's not a very successful proposition. And it reminded me of a theme that I keep returning to in the teachings, and that I've shared a lot here at Mission Dharma, the teachings that the Buddha gave about finding a reliable refuge, a reliable kind of happiness. And all this sprang from my inspiration to really focus on this sprang from a experience I had with a teacher named Anagarika Munindra back in I think it was 1981, after doing several long practice periods, 3 months at a time, just immersing myself in the practice, I felt like Michael J. Fox, like a pretty happy guy. And I attributed that to my temperament, etc., and some of the things that I had learned from the meditation. And not only was I sitting retreats, but I felt this urge to support other people practicing. So I became a retreat manager and used to manage regularly the retreat that was offered every year at a place called Yucca Valley or Joshua Tree, where we held retreats for well over 30 years. And I had the good fortune of leading about 30 years worth of retreats there. But one of these retreats, not only did I function as manager, but I was also the attendant to the teacher, Anagarika Munindra, who, as many of you know, was the teacher of Joseph Goldstein, who I consider one of my root teachers and the preeminent Western Dharma teacher. But it was wonderful following Munindraji around, and he was he took delight in everything, very immediate, and you could ask him anything about the Dharma and he would just start waxing. And for those who don't know what the Dharma is the teachings, just the way it is, nature, the laws of nature that the Buddha, the things that the Buddha discovered in his practice. So after this long period of attending to Munindra and his every need, it was time to say goodbye, and he looked at me, and we did our honorific things, our bows, etc. And he looked at me and he said, "May you truly be happy." And most people would say, "Oh, that's wonderful. He's wishing me well. It's a very affectionate." But for me, it was like being struck in the heart with this doubt that I had. Am I really happy? And I somehow knew that whatever this just happy disposition wasn't true happiness. And so I started to study the teachings on happiness. And it was very clear as I read through the teachings that the Buddha described different kinds of happiness. There was the happiness of practicing and being harmless, the beautiful kind of pleasure that comes with that, sometimes called the bliss of blamelessness, the happiness of a well-concentrated mind, and the happiness of a mind that is balanced, of equanimous, non-reactive to the rising and falling of changing experiences. And then the happiness of nirvana, the happiness of the unborn, the unconditioned, of awakening to that in us which is immovable, unshakable, that's deathless. So all that sounded wonderful. But what really struck me was a specific kind of teaching on happiness that described two main kinds of happiness. One kind of happiness that depends on conditions. It's called Lokiya Sukha, worldly happiness, the happiness that depends on satisfying some kind of hunger for things to be a particular kind of way. That's also called the happiness of it's called dependent happiness. It's also called the happiness of bondage. Maybe is an extreme word, but that's what it's called. And it's called conditional happiness. So this is called Lokiya Sukha, worldly happiness. And this is contrasted with what the Buddha called Lokuttara Sukha, which means unconditional happiness, a well-being that is independent, unassailable, unshakable, independent of circumstances. It's also called the happiness that is free of hunger. It's the happiness that doesn't depend on conditions, also called true happiness. So I scanned my own internal and external world, and I saw, mostly what I and everyone else seems to be pretty preoccupied with, pretty much mistakenly putting faith in, is the happiness that depends on conditions, the happiness that depends on satisfying some kind of desire. And the Buddha basically said that all of this kind of happiness that depends on conditions, that depends on the passing of the virus, the ending of that, which of course would bring a tremendous relief. But if your well-being is dependent on that, good luck. If your happiness is dependent on being loved, sometimes you will be, sometimes you won't be. If your happiness is dependent on your body staying young, Buddha was clear that pride in youth is not very reliable. If your well-being is dependent on staying healthy, even that, unreliable. Pride in health is not very reliable. And if your well-being and happiness is dependent on staying alive, not very reliable. Buddha described the pride in life as a source of stress, actually. So with this arising of the Omicron, it was just another reminder for me that I needed to remind myself, and I thought it might be useful to remind all of you, that what this practice points to is not more self-improvement. It's not more getting what you want, even though the often the fragrance of a mind that is pretty easy and balanced is that you feel safe to other people, and people want to be around you a little bit more. And so there's a lot more ease and contentment, and lots of benefits, lots of fruits. But still, there are lots of benefits to practice. But the real aim, the real point of it, is to recognize, to realize within you, even as what's his name, Albert Camus said, in the midst of winter, I realized that there was within me an invincible summer. That each of us has within us a reliable refuge, someplace that is not a part of us, that is not dependent on circumstances, that it is so close that it's too close for us to recognize. It's so actually easy to tap into it that we can't believe it. It's wondrous and it's vast. I gave you a little synopsis of a teaching from the Tibetan tradition just now called the Four Faults. Why we don't recognize that the reliable happiness that we're looking for is none other than the very nature of our mind, the nature of awareness. Why we don't realize it? Because it's too close, it's too vast, it's too wondrous, and it's too easy. We can't believe that we don't have to leave this very moment to find that reliable, unshakable peace that we're looking for. It seems to me that every single one of us, in our heart of hearts, every single one of us is looking for some way that we can be the eye of the hurricane, that we can find stability. Not if you agree, this is what you would like, that you'd like some equilibrium, you'd like some peace, some relief, some ease, some calm, some what the business world calls resilience. Anybody up for that? Hope so. See, we used to be able to have fun with asking, when you could hear everybody's sound, we might even be laughing at this. So you could say that this is the desire that drives all other desires, to find that place of relief, that hidden aim in every single thing we do is to find something that we can depend on. The unfortunate truth, at least it seems to me, the unfortunate truth is the methods that we use to go about finding that relief, that peace, that equilibrium, that resilience. The methods that we use tend to just increase the feeling of stress, of tension, of anxiety, of worry. Tonight I got a text from one of our Sangha members. For those of you who don't know the word Sangha, People drop in all the time. Sangha is community. It's the community that comes together for the purpose of seeing things the way they are, truth, and that there's a sacred power in practicing together. So one of our Sangha members, somebody who's been with us, who's been a board member, who's a longtime practitioner, his name is Ken Barnes. Maybe some of you know him. He's in the hospital right now, and he has some real health issues, and he's going to be operated. So I'd love everyone to put their heart and their attention on Ken tonight. But Ken has had so many ailments. He's had 9 lives. And he is remarkable in the persistent equanimity, a sense of well-being that seems to pervade even the times where he's just about to be operated on for, I don't want to get into the details of it, but it's not easy, but he just shows up. And he shows up, I think, in part because I think his wisdom is intrinsic, is innate, but he practices. And what does he practice? He practices awareness. If you think about what is it that is a constant, what is it that shines on or absorbs, whether you're in a state of joy or when you're in a state of sorrow, and when you're in a state of anxiety or when you're in a state of ease, what is the common element in every one of those states? The common element is awareness. Awareness is untouched by whatever state visits. Awareness of anxiety is not anxious. Awareness of sad is not sad. Awareness of anger is not angry. Awareness, the very consciousness through which you're perceiving, is remarkably, and if you get to know it really well, is remarkably untouched by whatever it is that shows up in our life. And it is perpetually there for you as a reliable source of stability, of peace, of ease. It really is the peace and ease that we are searching for, is none other than our own mind. I made some notes before we started this evening. And as I was saying before, the tendency is to look for this security, this safety, the reliable refuge, just like looking for love in all the wrong places. We tend to look for it in control, in security, in stuff, in experiences. But every experience, every kind of security that we usually associate with happiness actually creates a kind of inner tension. I was reading from Helen Keller, who said, security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. So when we depend on conditions turning out the way that we want them, if we depend on how things go with our lives, with the future, even with our families' lives, if we depend on that for our well-being, we are in a perpetual state of fear and anxiety, of worry. And if we depend on satisfying some kind of desire for others to agree with us. I read the most disturbing story about I have to share it with you. A story about a guy who was very, very identified and very fond of his religion. But he wasn't finding a lot of people who, and it could be very similar to somebody who's looking for a sangha, looking for a community of like-minded beings. He wanted to find a sangha. And in this particular religion that he's involved with, he heard about these homes where people lived in a community setting with other like-minded people, and that their description of their bylaws, etc., says we're open to people with different points of view, but they share this common love of this religious tradition. So he moved all the way across the country gave up his home, gave up his stuff to move into one of these houses where he could fulfill this desire to hang out with other like-minded people and practice in the way that others would help feed his practice and support it. And we all know how much support there is when we practice together with others. It's so different than just being home alone. So he moved all the way across, and then he happened to one day get into a conversation with one of the people in his community. And he informed them very casually, assuming that it was no big deal, that he was a political conservative. And that he believed in, whatever the traditional conservative about the defense and whatever the views are. We don't need to get into the details of it. But the person he was speaking to became very strongly reactive. And then it got around the community that he was a political conservative. He hadn't been strident. He hadn't argued with anybody. He hadn't tried to impose his views on anyone. But eventually, everybody in the community said that it made them uncomfortable. And he was then treated as though he was a problem, and essentially after 1 week asked to leave. And it's a reminder that in this case, it's progressives have become progressively intolerant. I mean, this is nothing new. And so just as a balance for this tendency to depend on others, to think like us for our sense of well-being, good luck. And as a practice, if you're a conservative, talk to a liberal, a progressive. If you're a progressive, bring a conservative person into your heart. At least be honest about what kinds of things you are dependent on for your sense of well-being. Where are your addictions? What are you attached to? I think of the 4 attachments that the Buddha talked about. Attachment to sense pleasures. Is that your hook? Is that where you put your misplaced faith? That expectation that will bring you relief and that sense of reliable refuge. Is it your attachment to rites and customs? It could be this whole house of worship this could all be just another source of stress if we become excessively dependent on it. Is it views and opinions? That's a big one in our culture. And how unreliable is our sense of identity. Is your well-being dependent on being special, on being the best of something? This is, as I remember, Jack Kornfield told a story about a woman who was a yogi, really a fierce yogi, and she had traveled to Burma with her husband, who was a scholar. She did the practice, he did the study. And turned out, because of her practice, became very wise. But he got all the accolades because he had the big title. But one day, while just hanging out with a group of people, she just looked up from whatever she was doing, and she just casually said, I don't understand why people prefer the quicksand of somebodyness or somethingness rather than the firm ground of emptiness, the firm ground of openness, the firm ground of the unconditioned that lives in us, the unconditional awareness. But we tend to choose, very innocently, but we choose the quicksand of somethingness, the quicksand of pleasure, this quicksand of views, the quicksand of our bodies, the quicksand of the quicksand of identity. I'm checking to see if I've covered any what I've written here. Well, just to be a little bit more specific about the quicksand of identity. Would being smart enough really make you happy? Would being accomplished enough really make you happy? Would being loved enough really make you happy? Being assertive enough or seen enough? If you become identified with being praised, what happens when you get blamed? If you're identified with pleasure, what happens when you experience the unpleasant? If you're identified with fame, what happens when you're shamed? We can't rely on any vulnerable, changing condition. But the good news is that there is within us a reliable refuge. And that's why we practice. Just to reinforce I've got to do a little computer thing here to find this quote. This is from H.W.L. Punja. A continuation on the theme of a reliable refuge. Punjaji was one of my root teachers. I consider him the teacher that stole my mind and just kind of ended, in a way, the search for a refuge outside of myself. So Punjaji said, I had been a devotee of Krishna from childhood on. So much so that Krishna would even manifest in front of me in physical form. I could register him with all my senses in the same way that I could see ordinary things. I had been spending about 4 days in some place I can't pronounce, Adi Anomalai, I think Tiruvannamalai, today's Tiruvannamalai, on the other side of the mountain. On my return, I went to see Maharishi, Ramana Maharshi, who was my teacher, and he asked me, where have you been? I replied, on the other side of the mountain, staying by myself and playing with Krishna. Oh, very good. You've been playing with Krishna, he exclaimed. Yes, sir, I've been playing with Krishna. He is my friend. Do you see him now? No, sir, I don't. Then he said, what appears and disappears is not real. You saw him, then he disappeared. Now you are here. The seer remains. Now find out who the seer is. This seer was just a word spoken by the Maharishi, but it struck me with such an impact that I became the seer. I became the seer. Nowadays, when I give satsangs or when I'm with the Sangha, I tell people, don't hold on to the world. Go to the root of the world. Go to that which the world is pointing to, the word is pointing to. If you do this, instantly you will have true understanding. So we don't necessarily instantly in our practice, although we can have true understanding, but we gradually awaken through the continuity of awareness until we recognize, as the Buddha did when he scanned the world, when he scanned his body, when he scanned his identity, when he studied moment by moment, and he saw that there was nothing whatsoever to be clung to as I or mine. And when he saw this, something in him let go. And in a flash of insight, as his mind, as his wisdom grew, he saw that there was nothing to cling to. This experience of letting go illuminated an ever-present wakefulness and clarity. And so that's why the essence of the teacher is nothing whatsoever should be clung to as I or mine. Whoever has heard this teaching, he said, has heard the entire teaching. Whoever has practiced it has practiced the entire teaching. Whoever has realized the fruit of this has realized the whole teaching. So may we all find a reliable refuge. May we all experience lokuttara sukha, happiness that is independent, free, and recognize it at once as the very nature of our mind, that you are the Buddha. And as Kalo Rinpoche says, if I can read from Kalo for a moment, sometimes this works. Kalo Rinpoche says, there's nothing to be gained, nothing to be found that is not there already. Truth is so simple. Buddhahood is so simple, so self-evident. Truth is here, in this very room. Truth is you. The supreme silence, infinity is in you. You are the silence. You are the truth. You are the Buddha. It's here in this very moment, so simple and unaffected, so near. Yet we make it so distant when it's so near, so remote when it's so immediate, so complicated when it's so simple. Do you know what it's like to be at the roadside with your motor car, but to have lost the way? You are the Buddha. Then why don't you feel it? Why don't you know it utterly through and through? Because there's a veil in the way, which is attached to appearances. such as the belief that you're not the Buddha, that you're separate, apart from the flow of life. If you cannot lift this veil at once, then it must be dissolved gradually. If you've seen through it totally just once, just one glimpse, then you can see through it all the time, wherever you are, whatever presents itself, however things seem to be. Simply refer to that ever-present, inherent spaciousness, openness, and clarity. May we all be aware, stay aware, and awaken together. Anyway, thanks for staying with us. Thanks for your practice. Hit the gong after considering, it's all considered together, that if there's been any use for us to be together and have this conversation, that it be shared with all beings so that everyone realizes their nature. Everybody can be happy, truly happy. Everyone can have less suffering and the cause of suffering, less misplaced faith in things that don't deliver true relief. May we all be liberated. Thanks so much. Please feel free to unmute and say goodnight to each other.
Thank you, Howie.
Good night. Thank you, Howie.
You
Good
Howie.
night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, Howie.
everyone.
Sweet dreams.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Howard.
Be tolerant.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Be resilient.
Thank you all.
Howie, good night.
Thanks, Howie.
Thank you. Was that Christine Owens?